Imagine being cross-examined on, like, your most fundamental life choices.
Sounds stressful.
Yeah, but now imagine the person interrogating you is someone who still regularly loses their own shoes.
Right, yeah, the classic parenting trap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that is the reality of answering a child when they look up and ask that ultimate dreaded question. Why do I have to go to school?
It forces this immediate, almost philosophical crisis.
Totally.
Because suddenly you're tasked with justifying an entire societal institution to someone who, frankly, barely understands how a calendar works.
Right. Well, welcome to your custom deep dive. And our mission today is to unpack a remarkably concise but really profound piece of source material that you provided for us.
Yeah, that's a fascinating text.
It really is. It's an excerpt from a guide called The Purpose of Learning, Age-Appropriate Guidance for Parents. And it attempts to solve this exact communicative crisis we're talking about.
Right, it zeroes in on how to answer that specific question about school.
And it gives us these two distinct scripts, right? One for a 6-year-old and one for a 9-year-old.
Which on the surface just looks like a standard parenting cheat sheet. Like, here are the words to say to get your kid out the door.
Just a survival guide.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But when we actually analyze these two scripts side by side, it functions as this profound psychological mirror.
Oh, how so?
Well, it reveals the underlying mechanisms of how a human being's relationship with authority and society and the whole concept of learning itself fundamentally reorganizes. And it happens in a span of just 3 years.
Just 3 years. It's wild to think about. So let's look at the baseline. Let's start with the 6-year-old.
Okay, let's do it.
The child asks why they have to go to school, and the text gives the parent this very specific script. Quote, "School helps your brain grow stronger. You learn how to read, solve problems, and understand the world."
Right.
But then, right below that, there's this private directive aimed solely at the parent. And it just says, focus on empowerment.
And that single directive, focusing on empowerment, that is carrying an immense amount of developmental weight.
I mean, it sounds nice, but what does it actually mean for a 6-year-old?
Well, at 6 years old, a child's cognitive framework is entirely literal. It's concrete. They measure reality through observable physical changes.
Like seeing pencil marks on a doorframe to see how tall they are.
Exactly. They notice they're getting taller, or like that they can run faster than they could last summer.
Okay, so it's all physical.
Right. So the text is advising the parent to take this incredibly abstract concept of quote unquote education.
Which is huge.
Yeah, and map it directly onto that familiar literal concept of physical growth.
That makes so much sense. Taking this invisible, massive institution and making it a tangible bodily function.
Precisely.
My mind immediately goes to, like, the concept of a brain gym.
A brain gym, yes.
The parent is essentially framing the classroom as a place where the kid goes to do cognitive push-ups.
That is the exact mechanism at play here. The brain gym analogy works perfectly because it translates all the long-term, invisible benefits of education into this immediate, observable transaction.
Something a 6-year-old can actually wrap their head around.
Exactly. They can conceptualize it.
I do have to push back a little bit on the long-term impact of that framing, though.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, when I look at the script, focusing on growing stronger and solving problems to understand the world, it feels intensely individualistic.
It definitely is.
So doesn't framing school primarily as a place where you just acquire personal strength risk, setting this expectation that learning is purely transactional?
Like a video game.
Yes.
Huh.
Like it implies education is just leveling up your character's stats to get a prize, which seems to completely miss the broader communal purpose of what a school actually is.
You're identifying a very real tension there. But we have to evaluate that transactional framing against the actual reality of a 6-year-old's daily existence.
Okay, what is that reality?
Consider the power dynamics. A 6-year-old lives in a world that is terrifyingly massive and almost entirely out of their control.
That's true. Adults dictate literally everything.
Exactly. When they wake up, what they eat for lunch, when they have to sit down, when they're allowed to speak, they possess almost zero systemic power.
They are essentially tiny passengers trapped in the backseat of everyone else's car.
That's a perfect way to put it. And in that context of total powerlessness, a highly individualistic, transactional approach to learning isn't just selfish. It's a necessary psychological scaffold.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't think about it like that.
Look closely at the final phrase in the 6-year-old script. It says, understand the world.
Right.
For someone who has no control over their environment, the ability to simply understand that environment, it isn't just an educational milestone. It functions as a survival mechanism.
So it's about giving them some kind of footing.
Yes. The text instructs the parent to use the promise of capability to build a locus of control. You have to construct the child's individual ego and their sense of basic competence first.
Before you can introduce them to, like, the complexities of a shared social reality.
Exactly. They must believe they possess the tools to survive the world before they can realistically be asked to contribute to it.
So the goal of empowerment in this text isn't about creating some little achievement machine. It's about providing an armor of competence.
An armor of competence.
By saying, you will learn to read and solve problems, the parent is basically arming the kid with the belief that they can decode their surroundings,
Right.
which neutralizes the inherent terror of being so small in such a big world.
Agency is the foundation here. Without that sense of personal agency, school is merely a processing plant where a child is just forced to spend their day.
Just another place adults tell them what to do.
Exactly. So by framing it as the place where they acquire their own personal survival toolkit, the parent creates internal motivation.
Okay, but, and I think this is where it gets really interesting, that armor of competence comes with a catch.
It always does.
The moment they realize they actually have the tools to understand the world, they start looking very critically at the people running it.
Oh, absolutely.
And we see this shift so clearly in the second half of the source text, which moves us forward to the 9-year-old mindset. The eager, compliant 6-year-old is gone.
Completely gone.
And the skeptic has officially arrived.
The honeymoon phase of institutional learning just evaporates.
Right, so the 9-year-old asks the identical question. Why do I have to go to school? But the script provided for the parent undergoes a massive transformation.
It's totally different.
The parent is now instructed to say, quote, school teaches knowledge, but it also teaches how to think, work with people, and keep learning your whole life.
Right.
And the hidden directive for the parent also completely flips. It warns, children this age challenge authority more. Answer respectfully.
That phrase right there, answer respectfully,
Yeah.
that reveals the underlying cognitive leap that happens around age now.
What's going on in their brains at that point?
Well, at 6, children view rules as absolute magical laws of the universe, right? Handed down by these omniscient adults.
Like the rules of physics. They just exist.
Yes. But by 9, their capacity for abstract thought has developed enough that they can separate the concept of a rule from the rule maker.
Right.
They begin to recognize the social construct of school. They start noticing things like, hey, different teachers enforce rules differently.
Or that just memorizing facts doesn't actually help them navigate the social hierarchy of the playground.
Exactly. They realize the rule maker is fallible, which means the rules themselves are subjective and negotiable.
It reminds me of a tiny, highly skeptical trial lawyer.
Yes.
You can no longer present that simple brain gym defense and expect them to just drop the case. You have to provide a multi-tiered argument defending the existence of the modern schooling system itself.
They are actively searching for logical fallacies, in your parenting and in the structures all around them.
Which brings me to what I think is a fascinating admission in the text. The script explicitly tells the child, school teaches knowledge, but it also teaches how to think and work with people.
Right.
By phrasing it as teaches knowledge, but the parent guide is subtly admitting something huge.
It is.
It's admitting that the rote memorization of facts, acquiring pure knowledge, isn't actually the main point of school anymore. The parent is essentially pulling back the curtain on the entire operation.
And pulling back that curtain is the only viable strategy at this point, because the 9-year-old is already peeking behind it.
They already know.
Right. If a parent attempts to fall back on absolute authority, using phrases like, because it's the law, or because I said so, they are completely ignoring the child's new developmental reality.
Right, because relying on blunt authority might force physical compliance.
But it will permanently sever the child's internal motivation to learn.
Because it insults their new intellectual awareness.
Precisely. It's deeply insulting to them. The parent must transition from being an omniscient provider of facts to engaging the child as an emerging intellectual peer.
A peer, wow.
By acknowledging that knowledge is only one fraction of the equation, and that learning how to think and work with others are the true objectives, the parent validates the child's skepticism.
They're saying you're right.
Exactly. The message becomes, you are correct. The memorization part isn't the whole story. You figured out the deeper level of the game.
So giving up that absolute authority seems to be the price the parent pays to buy long-term engagement.
It's a trade-off, yeah.
Because demanding obedience from someone who has recognized subjective reality only breeds rebellion. But offering them respect, as the directive literally commands, invites them into a partnership.
And notice the expansion of the time horizon in the second script, too.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, the 6-year-old script focuses on immediate problem solving, but the 9-year-old script ends with, keep learning your whole life. The text redefines learning. It changes it from a temporary task designed to solve an immediate problem into a permanent, lifelong state of being.
Seeing these two brackets side by side, it really allows us to synthesize what this text argues is the ultimate trajectory of education.
It's a clear path.
We are tracking a direct evolution from reading and problem solving at age 6 to working with people and learning your whole life at age 9.
The source heavily implies a fundamental shift in the very purpose of learning. It moves away from individual capability and shifts towards social integration and continuous, open-ended growth.
The progression feels remarkably similar to the evolution of, like, learning how to drive a car.
Oh, I like that. How so?
At 6 years old, you're in an empty parking lot. The focus is entirely mechanical and self-contained. You just learn what the gas pedal does and what the brake pedal does. You're mastering the machinery of your own mind so you can literally just operate the vehicle.
Right. A closed system consisting only of the learner and their immediate tools.
Exactly. But then by age 9, you've left the parking lot and entered heavy traffic.
Yeah.
The mechanical skills are assumed at that point. Now, the challenge is entirely social and continuous. You have to read a map. You have to anticipate the unpredictable behavior of other drivers.
Navigate the presence of annoying passengers.
Right. And realize that you are embarking on a road trip with no final destination.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Education transforms from the simple downloading of facts into the complex process of learning how to safely and productively experience friction with the rest of the world.
Friction, yeah.
The text views learning not as a static diploma you eventually acquire, but as a constantly evolving relationship, a relationship between the learner, their peers, and the authority figures guiding them.
Right.
At 6, that relationship is completely dependent. The authority figure grants the child empowerment. But at 9, the relationship requires mutual negotiation.
Because the child has agency now.
Yes. The learner acknowledges their place within a wider social fabric. And the authority figure must acknowledge the learner's right to question the integrity of the system.
You know, the really profound part of this deep dive for me is realizing the implications this has for us long after we leave childhood.
It doesn't stop at age 9.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought us this text to analyze how parents answer kids, but the framework it outlines forces a total reevaluation of how we as adults function in the workplace and in society at large.
The workplace is really the ultimate extension of this educational framework. We frequently see professionals who are chronologically adults, but who are still operating with a 6-year-old's cognitive relationship to learning and authority.
Oh, 100%. They're still entirely focused on transactional empowerment.
Yeah.
They show up to their job seeking the corporate equivalent of the brain gym. They just want to know exactly what discrete tasks they need to complete to grow stronger, level up, and earn their next promotion. They rely completely on the authority figures above them to dictate all the rules and provide that armor of competence.
Which works for a while, but it's limiting. Conversely, you see professionals operating with the 9-year-old mindset.
The skeptics.
Right. They've made the cognitive leap to recognize that corporate structures and processes are just social constructs created by fallible humans.
They see behind the corporate curtain.
Exactly. They understand that acquiring knowledge or completing basic tasks is only a fraction of the job. Their true value lies in how they think, how they navigate the complex social hierarchy of working with people, and how they challenge the existing systems.
But, and I think this is the crucial distinction the text makes, the challenging of systems must be paired with the directive to act respectfully.
Yes, that is key.
The 9-year-old mindset doesn't just tear down authority for the sake of rebellion. It questions the system in a way that attempts to improve the collective road trip. It's the difference between an employee who just complains that a policy is stupid and an employee who respectfully points out to management that a policy is no longer serving the team's shared goals.
The text suggests that true maturity, whether you're at age 9 or age 40, requires abandoning the comfort of literal black and white rules.
It's so much easier to just follow the rules.
It really is. But true maturity demands accepting that continuous learning involves negotiating with imperfect authority figures and collaborating with unpredictable peers.
So we started by looking at a few sentences designed to help a parent survive an annoying conversation before the school bus arrives.
Right?
And we've uncovered this comprehensive philosophy, mapping the journey from acquiring a personal toolkit to learning how to actually build a community with it.
Mm.
It highlights the necessary shift from seeking individual empowerment to requiring intellectual respect and continuous growth.
The blueprint provided by the source material forces us to really ask where we currently sit on that continuum in our own lives.
Which leads perfectly to a final thought I want to leave you with, something for you to explore on your own that builds logically on the trajectory we've trapped today.
Okay.
The source text gave us the blueprint for the early years. We saw that a 6-year-old requires literal empowerment to feel safe in a chaotic world. And we saw that a 9-year-old begins to see through the social constructs, challenging authority, and requiring profound intellectual respect to stay engaged.
Right.
Well, if we extrapolate that exact developmental trajectory forward, what does this framework imply happens next? How would you explain the purpose of learning to an 18-year-old who is about to enter the adult world?
That's a tough one.
Or, perhaps even more pressingly, how do we explain it to ourselves when we are finally the ones expected to be the unquestioned authority figures? When a child or a junior colleague looks at you and asks why the system works the way it does, are you still engaged in the lifelong learning required to answer them respectfully? Or have you forgotten how to be the skeptical 9-year-old?